Hello, Markham Gardens family. Daniel Markham here with Markham Gardens. Wanted to bring you guys along today. Today we are planting a double knockout rose. We're planting roses, guys. If you've ever planted roses and you have done many different varieties, you have probably heard of the double knockout. What's amazing about these are, number one, the flowers are absolutely beautiful. They are this bright, almost fluorescent red-pink color. And one of the cool things about them is that most roses, when they grow their bloom, you have to deadhead that rose to make it continue to bloom throughout the season. And guys, forgive the traffic. I'm sorry. It is up and down the road. Hopefully you guys can still hear me through it. But one of the things about the double knockout rose is that it deadheads itself. So as soon as it's done blooming, instead of putting all of that energy into a rose hip to create the seed and such, it just dries up, dies, falls off, continues to bloom, and does that basically all year long. It can handle a lot of heat. We have one other double knockout on the property, and it bloomed all the way through all of our heat, all the way into fall. And by the time we hit a freeze, there were still blooms on it that ended up getting frost and fell off of that thing. So we are going to be planting another one today. We love them. They're beautiful, and they're easy to grow. So what I'm going to do, guys, is just walk you through the process of this. I've got a couple tricks to make this easier for you. A lot of people, they work super hard to get what they want, to do what they want, when there's easier ways and easier processes to do it. So hopefully I can help you today and show you some of the easier processes. But let me show you real quick what we've got. So right here we've got a double knockout rose. You guys can see it's already starting to put out some new growth. It's got some new leaves on it, and so we are going to get this thing in the ground and see if we can get it a good start. So we have chosen our location for it. Basically, this is right across from our other double knockout rose. And so we're going to end up putting this rose right here at this edge. And so you guys know that I use a lot of mulch. I mulch our entire property. I went ahead and laid these logs around to create kind of a raised bed area. That way, as this mulch breaks down and turns into beautiful black soil, it'll create an awesome raised bed for all of our flowers and trees and such. So, but first thing we need to do is I cannot plant, say hi to Mufasa, everybody. I cannot plant this double knockout rose in these wood chips. The good soil that it will do well on is on the bottom of all of these wood chips. So the first thing I need to do is I need to move all of these wood chips back, and I'm going to move all of it back in sort of a crater style down to the original ground level. So I'm going to go ahead and get on this. So those of you that have been watching the channel for quite some time know that, we started on this property with sugar sand. Basically a really fine, almost beach sand on this property. And I knew that we needed organic material to be able to create a soil that would sustain plants when I planted them in it. And so I just want to show you guys real quick. On the bottom of these wood chips, let me show you, we started off, like I said, with sugar sand, and let me show you what we're working with now, guys. This is what we're working with now. This beautiful black soil, and wouldn't you know, an earthworm right there on top. So that's what happens, guys, when you put down organic material. Don't be afraid to pile it up, guys. This is probably minimum, probably about 10 inches of mulch, hardwood chip mulch that I've laid down in this area. And it's been sitting in this area, this particular bed, probably about 4 to 5 months. And so we've already got breakdown in this area. We've already got worms starting to build up in this area. And so that's what you want, guys. You want really, really good soil in the area that you're going to plant in. And the only way to do that is to add organic material on top of your soil. If you've got hard clay, you've got soil that has a lack of nutrients that you can't seem to get stuff to grow in, guys, put mulch on top of it. The earthworms will come up through that really crappy soil, and they will grab all of that mulch, begin breaking it down, and they will drag it back down into the ground. And that's basically what is happening here. So, all right, so I've gone ahead and I've pulled it out. We're down to ground level underneath this. And so the first thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and dig a hole. Now, when you dig your holes, guys, I've talked about this in the previous video. I just don't think I showed you how I do it. And you want to take the pot, actually Berries and Blooms, the video there, if you guys will go check that out. I showed you guys how to plant several trees. But you want to dig a hole for your plant, and that hole that you want to dig, you want it to be twice the width of whatever it is that you plant, and you want to dig down at least 1.5 to 2 times the depth of whatever it is, the pot that you're going to be planting. That way you've got plenty of room for root growth. The soil is loose, it's easy for the roots to get down through, and will give your plant the best opportunity for success. So let me go ahead and I'm just going to dig this hole, guys. I'm going to dig it about 2 times the width of the pot that rose is in. But before I do that, I want to show you guys a trick when it comes to digging your holes. A lot of people will put their shovel down and they will start jumping on top of this shovel to pound it into the ground. I've seen people kick it with their feet like this. That's a lot of work, guys. That'll get you winded. It's putting a lot of effort into digging that hole. And I want to show you guys a trick, a way to get your shovel to go down into the ground with minimal effort. And I have used this in rocky ground. I've used this in ground full of roots. And I've used it in really, really fine, nice soil. And it always works. Basically, as you're digging down in, the tip of the shovel moves the rocks out of the way. And so I'm just going to show you guys real quick. What you want to do is, if you look at the face of your shovel, if you have your handle straight up and down, you can see that it's actually at an angle here. And so what's going to happen is, if your shovel's at an angle, you're going to end up digging at an angle down into the ground, meaning that your hole will get narrower as it gets to the bottom of the hole. So what you want to do when you dig is you want this shovel to be up and down vertical. So you want to go straight down into the ground, which means that your handle is actually going to be leaning out some. Well, when you set that on the ground, you want a hole that goes straight down. You don't want it narrowing as it gets to the bottom. So go ahead and straighten that shovel out. Stand on top of the shovel. Get it started. So you're just going to get it started into the hole. And then what I do is I stand on top of the shovel as soon as it can support me, and I start moving this handle around. You guys can see it's almost like I'm riding the shovel. I will go back and forth and all over the place. And if you guys can see this, I don't know if you can, I hope you can. The shovel is digging itself. All I do is shake it back and forth, move it all over the place. And now, guys, look. The entire head of that shovel is buried in the ground. And I did minimal effort. I just stood on top of the shovel and moved the handle around. Guys, it's so much easier. So what I'll do is I'll pull on this just to see if I can loosen it up. It loosened it up just a little bit. And because I've been moving it around, I can also pull that shovel right back out of that hole that slice that I just did in it. So now I'm going to move to the other side of it. I'm going to do basically 4 of these to make my hole. And so the second one, I'm going to go ahead and bury it. Okay. apparently I have hit a root. Sometimes that happens, guys, and it looks like it's a big root. So let me see if I can work around it. We'll have to figure out where that root goes. Okay. So we're going to move our hole just a little bit. I do not want to have to fight that root. I don't want to have to cut it. If I cut that root, it feels like it's pretty good size. And that root is going to be basically providing nutrients for one of the limbs that's on the tree. And so if I remove that root, that tree is going to have a hard time sustaining at least one of its branches, and I'm probably going to lose some branches on the tree or some growth. And so I'm going to go ahead and move this hole just a little bit since we can't get around that root. Sometimes this happens, guys. You have a plan where you're going to put it, and all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, it can't go there. I can't get through that big root. Now small roots it'll work on, but this one, it's a no-go. So looks like our root is right to there. So I'm going to do it again, guys. Just stand on it, and we're going to move it back and forth. And we're buried. I did it once, so it makes it a lot easier once you've done it once. We'll pull it back out, and we'll move to our other side. All right, I'm going to ride that shovel. It may look funny, so don't have anybody watching you while you're doing it. Like you guys are doing with me right now. All right, I'm going to pull that back. Looks like we've got another pretty good sized root in there, and we may have to end up cutting it. So yeah, we've got a pretty good sized root in there. So now as I dig this soil out, I'm going to actually take this soil and I'm going to push it all the way around the outside of this hole. Yeah, it's not a huge root, but it's definitely big enough. It's causing me some issues. All right, you guys can see the root that came out of there. That's a decent sized root. Guys, one of the benefits of living in Texas is how friendly everybody is. That right there was the bus. I've never met her, the bus driver, and she honks and waves just because I'm over here. So it's just something you don't see a lot in a lot of other areas like where we used to live in the big cities. People tend to do their own thing and ignore everybody around them, and it's never been the case since we've moved here. Everybody seems super friendly, and so now I've gotten down in there enough, and I've started my hole, guys. I rode that shovel down in enough that it has broken some of this up, and so now I'm able to just easily go down into the hole and shave the outer edges. So now I'm just shaving the outer edges just to make sure that I've got a nice round hole. All right, looks like we've got a grub here. And those are beneficial, guys. If you have wood mulch, these guys are the fastest at breaking that stuff down. And we'll go ahead and take that in there to the chickens a little bit later. They'll love that. So I want to take all of this sand, basically, that's down underneath, and I want to pull all of this back. And we'll push some of that back in over on top a little bit later. But I'm going to plant this a little bit elevated. That way we don't have water pulling to this area, guys. We get 55 inches of rain a year, and if I don't pull that back and plant high, all that water from our rain will go to the center where that plant is and basically drown that plant, or it will rot out the root system and the trunk on it. So I have gone ahead, I have dug down about, it's loose, just about twice the depth of the pot. So now what I want to do is, I have got some of our mix that our chickens make. You know, guys, I've showed you that before. Some of this black soil. And then I'm going to mix this up into the sand. So the sand that's still in the hole down there that's all loose, I'm going to mix that up in there. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to take our pot and I want to set it down into that hole and see if our level is correct. If it's not, I'm going to add some more dirt down into the bottom to raise this up so that the soil level in the pot is at least 2 inches above the top level of the ground. So wherever the level of the ground is, I want this planted about 2 inches high. Now, one of the concerns that a lot of people have in hot weather, hot and dry weather. So we get a lot of rain in the wintertime. We don't get a lot of rain in the summertime. In fact, the summertime, it gets dry and it gets hot. It gets upward of 100 degrees. And so one of the concerns that a lot of people have is, well, if I plant that thing really, really high, if I plant it 2 inches high, when we hit summertime, it's not going to be able to keep it moist enough. It's basically going to dry the roots out and I'm going to lose that plant. And guys, that's the benefit of having wood mulch. If you use a lot of mulch and use thick mulch, you can plant these about 2 inches high. That means that the water is going to sink down to ground level and it's going to pool on ground level. And these roots will always, the top crown of this rose will always be above that water level. But you can take your mulch and pull your mulch in near to that plant, to the level, to the 2 inches above the ground where you have the actual roots, and though that mulch will hold moisture and hold and push heat, keep heat away from that root system during the summertime. The root system will be at least 20 degrees cooler underneath the mulch than it will be on the surface that's exposed to the sun, at least 20 degrees. And so it will hold moisture in there as well, which helps the plant to be able to have moisture to draw up for the leaves and for the flowers and for the possible fruit during the times that it is hot and dry. So we're going to go ahead and test this out. We're going to see how high we are. Now I need to add some more soil, guys, and I have plenty of sand that's mixed in with this black stuff. I'm going to go ahead and fill some of this back in and bring that level just a little bit higher. All right, let's try that out. All right, just a little bit more. I'm going to go ahead and take some of this black soil and put this back in here, add a little bit more. And you guys can see there's some chunks in here like this. Those came from pots that I had plants that I was going to put in here, and I decided not to, so I ended up just reusing this soil. And so I'm going to dig down in here. I'm going to go ahead and churn this together, make sure it's nice and mixed. I don't want dirt to be in layers. If it's in layers, as the roots begin to penetrate the soil, they will get used to one soil, and then as they grow into the next type of soil, it can shock your root system depending on how much difference is between the soil that they started in versus the soil that they're growing into. And so that's why I mix this in with the native soil so that it's more used to the native soil and has kind of an in-between, so it's not such a shock to the plant. So let's go ahead and test this out. And guys, that is going to work. I am actually going to plant this a little bit higher than 2 inches because I have so much mulch in here. This mulch is going to break down and raise that level just a little bit. So I'm actually going to plant it probably about 2.5 to 3 inches high. And that's not a big deal. As long as you've got some mulch to cover that area, that the roots are not going to be exposed up above ground. So I've got this plant in here. Let's go ahead and position it the way that we want it. I'm going to go ahead and turn it this direction. And that way the width of the plant is actually viewable to my walkway. And so that's how I'm going to go ahead and plant this one. Now, I'm going to take my soil and I'm going to start laying this in around the plant. Now, I'm not planting this into this hole with the pot. I'm not. But this is my method of planting to make sure that the roots receive as little shock as possible whenever we're planting. So now we'll pull some of this sand back in. We'll mix all of this in with it. All right, guys, so then I'm going to take this pot, now that I've got all the soil to where I want it, I'm going to pull it out now. And now I've got a perfect mold where my plant is going to go. And so now I'm going to take this plant. If you're planting roses, guys, and you don't want to get stabbed, wear some gloves. But I'm just going to be careful and make sure that I don't get cut with this thing. So now I'm going to plant this right back into that hole that I just created. You guys can see how tall it is. It's standing up above the hole. And I'm going to feather this out now. I'm going to take this and feather that out into the area. Looks like there's some sort of a tree growing in there. So we're just going to feather that over that area. All right, so we are raised. I can see the root crown. With roses, you definitely don't want to bury your root crown. That crown on the rose is actually going to produce new shoots that pop up and create new blooms. And if you bury that crown, chances are that rose is going to rot out. The crown is going to rot out and the rest of the plant is going to die. So we've got that crown lifted. We've got it raised in this area. And so now what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to go grab some more of the soil that our chickens create. And I'm going to fill this area right here. That way we've got good soil to begin feeding and percolating down through the soil to feed the roots of this plant. And I'll be right back. All right, got some more soil. I'm just going to fill in this area around it. We'll make sure that all of the root zone has good soil that as it gets wet, is all that fertilizer and all of that food for this rose, as it continues waking up this spring, that it'll be fed. All right, so the last step that I'm going to do with this is I'm going to go ahead and pull some of my mulch back in on top of this rose. And I don't want the mulch actually touching the rose. What I want it to do is I want the mulch to go from 10 inches and gradually decrease in depth. So 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I want there to be 0 depth of mulch at the base where that crown is actually going into the ground. So you want a slope of that mulch going down in, and that'll hold all of your soil in place. As it builds up mycorrhiza, it will create a mat of mulch, and that will keep it from moving around as well. And so I'm just going to go ahead and start pulling some of this mulch in. We're going to pull it right up to the base, but not quite touching it. And it's going to continue to thin out as it gets closer to the rose. And basically what this does, guys, is it mimics what nature does anyway. Nature's in the forest and in the wild. You know, nature's constantly dropping leaves, constantly dropping twigs, constantly dropping fruit, things like that. And all of that ends up covering all of the ground. And nature knows that that's what provides food for the plants in the area. So that's what we're going to do, is we're going to go ahead and mimic that as though leaves had fallen, hit the branches, and then fell off to the side. The majority will fall off to the sides of a plant. And so that's what we're doing right now, is we're mimicking that. So now we've got basically ground level right here. This is set up on a raised 2 inches right there where the plant is. The plant is lifted 2 inches above, which means there's a rise up to where the plant is here. There's a rise, goes down, then goes back up into the mulch. So now I'm just going to take this so it looks nice. I'm going to go ahead and spread this throughout the area. And guys, I know I've said it in another video, but the easiest way to move mulch is with a pitchfork. 100%. It's the easiest way to move mulch around. Your shovel won't penetrate it. A rake will just get gummed up because the tines are too close together. And the easiest tool to move it around is going to be a pitchfork. 100%. All right, guys, we've got it looking pretty decent. I've got it looking the way I want it to look. It looks nice. We've come in and leveled it out so that we don't have any mulch that's going to fall back in on the rose, but we're covered right up to that area. And now all we need to do is water this rose in, and we're good to go. And it can start doing its thing, and we won't have to mess with it much. So let me grab the hose. So as I've walked you guys through the process before, basically you want to water this in to where the hole that you dug fills with water and pushes all of the air bubbles that could be in that hole out to the surface. Any air bubbles that are trapped, any areas of air bubbles, as the roots try to penetrate down into that, the roots will actually dry out in those air bubble areas and will die in that area. And just like I said with the tree, if an area of your roots dies, that means an area above the ground that you want growing is going to die as well, because it can't be sustained because the root that sustained it and that supplied it nutrients has now died. And so you want to water this area, and you want to water all of this all the way around where the root zone will grow into. but I want to water this to a place to where I water them to where there's water pulling up. The first time I do it, it'll sink in, and I'm going to initially do this just to wet it down. But keep in mind that when you water, guys, the water takes longer to penetrate into the soil than you think it does. I will basically water this whole area right here on top until I see a little bit of water standing. And then once I've done that, I'm gonna turn this hose down to about like this, where it's running really, really soft, just sort of a trickle. You guys can see how much water is coming off there. And I'll let this sit there and run on it for a minimum of at least 20 minutes and make sure that this whole area is saturated and is fully wet. And that gives this plant a good start. There's not going to be any dry pockets in there. The soil is going to be able to penetrate through all of that nice moist soil. Now, if you do have clay in your area, I've mentioned this in another video as well. If you are planting into clay, keep in mind that that water is not going to, it's going to penetrate even slower. So you're going to want to really slow that drip down and let it sit for even longer. Guys, it is better to water slow for a long period of time than it is to put a lot of water in a short period of time. And that way you get good penetration into the roots and you'll have the most success with your plants, guys. Well, I'm going to continue watering this. I'm going to get it taken care of. There's no reason for you guys to sit here and watch me watering this the whole time, but I appreciate you watching, guys. If you've just tuned into Markham Gardens, guys, hit the subscribe button. We're going to have a lot more videos like this, a lot more training, a lot more guidance, some with some ideas, and you guys may even see me make a few blunders every once in a while. But I'm going to go ahead and continue watering this in. Thanks for tuning in. Guys, if you'll hit the like button, if you haven't subscribed, if you will subscribe, and I know that you know somebody that needs to know this, somebody that's going to be planting that has never done it before, or somebody that's doing it the hard way, guys, hit that share button. Share this video and get the word out there. It definitely helps the channel, helps us to grow, gives me the ability and the want to do lots more videos. So anyway, thanks for tuning in, guys. Shalom under the dome. Love you. Bye. Hello. Hope you can hear me. Hope you can hear everything okay. And today we're going to be planting a rose. I'm going to be putting it in the ground. It's going to grow. It's going to have flowers. It's going to be awesome. All right. Talk to you later.